couple more minutes. It looks like we have about, I'm counting 6 right now. Of the candidates, it looks like 7. I just see Lenny joined us. So.
And I'll just say a couple things for the candidates. This is being recorded, so if you want to go back and reference it after the fact, I will be posting it to our YouTube channel for easy access, or if you know of another candidate who couldn't attend. I don't believe anyone told me they couldn't attend, but it will be recorded. And thank you all for putting your names in your squares so that we can accurately identify you looks like by what will be on the ballot. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach me.
So Helen, we don't have Nathan, we don't have Jason, and right? Is there somebody else?
Yeah, I don't see Nathan. I think Jason, I believe, told me that he was going to be late, or he may just watch the recording.
Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right now. All right. Well,
I think we can go ahead and get started. It is recorded.
I am. Thank you all. So out of respect for everybody's time, we're going to go ahead and kick this off because we have a fairly tight schedule, although it will depend on how many questions you have at the end of this as to how long this does go. But I am Rick Holman. I am your town manager here in Breckenridge. Kind of the format that we're going to be using today, after I do some just kind of brief introductions on what to expect here, is that I will have each of our departments talking a little bit about what they do, and they'll introduce themselves to you. You may or may not have had an opportunity to meet any one of them or some of them, kind of what they do with regards to their responsibilities within a town, and then give you a brief overview of just some of the hot topics that they're working on, or priorities that they are working on right now. You know, they got 5 to 7 minutes to talk about it. They are just going to scratch the surface and discuss a few things, because if, you know, you take, for instance, our public works director, James Phelps, when he's talking, I mean, between everything from transit and mobility to, you know, the water department, streets and engineering and all of that kind of stuff, you know, James could probably talk for an hour on the different things that are going on in the town, but we don't have that. And so we're just trying to identify a few things. And then we want, at the end of that, any questions you have about anything that's come up in the weeks that you've been starting to do your campaigning, any questions you may have as you prepare yourself for any of these future forums that are going on, or anything like that. In general, we're happy to try to address any specific questions that any candidate has. And we'll stay as long as we need to. Please understand that if, you know, that we have 3 openings and there will be 3 successful candidates. And for those of you that are successful, there will be a much more intense orientation process that we do with new council members, really to get them up to speed kind of the workings of the town, what's expected, et cetera, those types of things. So certainly if you're successful, there'll be a lot more interaction that occurs in the future. But let's kind of jump into this right now. Like I said, I'm the town manager, Rick Holman. I've been with the town for in my 21st year. Many of you know that most of my career was in law enforcement. I spent 11 years as the chief of police here in Breckenridge. And in 2012, I moved up to the town manager's office to assume the assistant town manager role. And then I did that for 3 years under Tim Gagan before taking that over and appointed by the council in January of 2016. So I am one of 4 positions. The town manager by charter is one of 4 positions that the town council hires. I am myself and the town attorney are the 2 full-time positions that basically work at the leisure of the council under contract. And the other 2 positions are the municipal court judge and the municipal court prosecuting attorney. And those are part-time positions. We hold court twice a month. And so the judge is here 2 days out of every month to hold court. So it's a part-time, same judge works in Vail and I think a couple other places. But those are part-time positions that are appointed by the council also. So those are the 4 positions. In the town manager's office is Peyton Rogers, who, if you're successful, you'll get to know Peyton well because she is our direct contact. She's the executive assistant to the town manager or the deputy town manager, and she's also the kind of liaison with the council, taking care of information and doing different things that the council may need help with. And then also the town, like I said, the town attorney and the deputy town manager, which is the number 2 position in the town, Shannon Haynes, and she'll talk to you in a minute about, she's going to kind of give you a quick overview of what finance is, because we currently don't have a finance director for the town. And that's the town manager's office here. So without any other going into any other detail at this time, I'm going to ask Shannon to just talk briefly about kind of our finance department and what's going on there, because it's in a bit of flux right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will keep this pretty short and sweet. Like Rick said, the finance department is in a bit of change in 2021. Our finance director moved on to some other opportunities on the Front Range. His sort of second in command within the department found a position as the finance director in Frisco. So we're really happy for them that they found other great opportunities. Right now, we're utilizing a firm, CLA, to help us operate the finance department while we fill these positions, but also to do an evaluation of the department. It's been a long time since we've had any change in there. The finance director had been here for 14 or 15 years. And so this is a great opportunity for us to look at how we do things in finance and how we improve our processes and become more efficient in how we operate. So we've had great success with Mendy Ellett, who's helping us with finance right now. She's come up with a lot of great procedures for us to put in place to improve our performance. She's also helped us with the structure of the department. And one of the reasons why we've held off on filling some of our vacant positions has been to ensure that we fill the right positions instead of just filling the same positions that we had before. And so there'll be a little bit of a restructure within the finance department, splitting the department to have a very distinct revenue side that handles sales tax, RET, licensing, water billing, and accommodations, and then more of an accounting side that handles our accounts payable, accounts receivable, our payroll, and things like that. And they also have an admin in there, which is a new position to help manage all things that happen within the department, and also to help with the customer service side of things. Because as you would imagine, we do have a fair number of external customers that need access to that department, as well as internal customers on the accounting side of things. So that's a general overview of finance. And when we get to the end, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Shannon. Dana, you talk about human resources.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dana Lavdier, and I'm the Director of Human Resources. Human Resources is made up of 5 employees total. We're a small department, but we are a mighty department. Very high level, Human Resources is responsible for the people and culture at the town of Breckenridge. And I always say that I have the best job because I truly believe I work with the most amazing individuals, and those are the employees at the town. And without our employees, without our wonderful employees, the town would not be as amazing as we are. We employ full-time employees, part-time employees, and seasonal employees. Summer is actually our peak season, and we can get up to about 450 employees in the middle of the summer. And the reason why summer is, we have more employees in the summer is because of our golf course, our beautiful parks, and the flowers downtown, our rec center, our day camp programs. So summer is our peak season for employees, and we're at about 450 or so in the summer. We are responsible in human resources for having competitive benefits, which means medical, dental, vision, robust retirement plans, short-term disability, life insurance, workers' compensation, just to name a few. We're also responsible for recruitment. And as you can imagine, it's never been as challenging as it is today. And we are lucky enough to have employee housing units. So that really gives us a competitive edge when it comes to recruiting for our positions, whether it's transit drivers, some individuals at the rec center. We really have a competitive edge because we have some employee housing units. Along with that, compensation is also very important. We're always looking at compensation to make sure that we're competitive in the market. We have great relationships with other HR departments in Colorado as well as locally. So we're always making sure we have a very competitive compensation and total compensation packet. And let's see, what else do? We are also responsible for employment law, making sure we're current with employment law and policy. And as you can imagine, our hot topics right now are compensation and recruitment. And I'd be happy to answer questions at the end, just like Shannon indicated as well. Thank you.
Hey, Dana, one figure, I don't think you said it, isn't our full-time year-round employee count around 190? What are we at, 190 right now?
Yeah, right around 190 to 200.
Okay, it varies a little bit depending on openings and that. So we spend more time, as those of you that are still in the workplace, and if you're responsible for hiring and people in the competitive nature, there isn't a day goes by that we're not looking at a position right now and a benefit and talking. You saw the article in the Summit Daily on what Frisco and Dillon are doing with summer seasonal positions and looking at increasing those $2 an hour. I mean, that's where we're at. We have to look at everything and say, if we're at $15 an hour to be consistent with them and they're going to 17, well, we have to look at that honestly, because everybody is competing for the limited number of people. And when we're hiring a couple hundred people in the summer, stuff doesn't get done. Flowers don't get planted. Things don't happen if we don't have the people there. So, all right. Thanks, Dana.
Great. Thank you so much.
Helen?
Okay, so hopefully you all know me by now. I'm Helen Kospelich. I'm the town clerk, municipal clerk. Been in this role for about 10 years, with the town for almost 20. Our division consists of 5 employees. We oversee elections, municipal court, marketing and communications, the town's liability coverage and all claims, the Valley Brook Cemetery, liquor, marijuana, and tobacco licensing, all town records and records requests, and town council meetings. And then all the odds and ends that fall between all those other things. We also serve as the front desk for town hall. And so you will see us as you walk into town hall. Our division really believes in open and accessible government, exceptional customer service. And for the election, as you know, we follow Colorado State Statute Title 31. And if you're not familiar with that, I'd encourage you to read that as part of the election process. We are very much governed by town code and state statute and the state constitution. And we liken ourselves to Switzerland, where we are the neutral, receiving, providing information. We as a whole, you know, our division does not make a lot of decisions, but we act on a lot of decisions. So we have to be really flexible and have some knowledge of everything that's going on in town at any given time. So in terms of our hot topics, obviously, the election is our big focus for the next couple of months. And we are also doing a town code conversion project that we hope to roll out next month to a new online, more accessible system that'll be easier to use for the public. And I'll be available for questions after this and then at any point in the election process.
Thank you, Helen. Mark?
Thanks, Rick. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Truckee. I'm the Community Development Director here at the town. Community Development is comprised of 3 different divisions: planning, building, and then housing/childcare. We currently have about 16 full-time employees. We are adding 1 planner that we're recruiting for right now as we speak. So we'll soon have 17 employees in our department. In terms of what we're involved with regarding planning, the planning department, the planning division, we review all development proposals to make sure that they're in conformance with the town's development code. And that means we take most of those to the planning commission with the staff report, et cetera. And we really help guide the planning commission, provide them the information they need to make decisions on development applications. Any larger development in town goes through that, including any project pretty much in the historic district. Ultimately, those decisions then go to the town council, and the council, it's on a consent calendar. The council can decide to call something up and have a new hearing on that. That's very rare that that happens. It's typically the council accepts the planning commission decision. However, it occasionally does happen that they call it up to review something. Most recently, that was done on the Breck Grand Vacations proposal, their master plan for the North Gondola lots over here in the Gold Rush lot. The planning division also takes a look at, we put a special emphasis on our historic district, which we're very much about trying to protect the integrity of the districts. We have special design standards that apply to any development in the district. And so they ensure that we maintain the historic character of existing homes, and that where additions are added in that, they do not detract from the overall character. But we do allow additions, et cetera, in the historic district, usually in the back of the property rather than out front, obviously. We also, as we can, the planners work on a number of long-range projects. Most recently, we've been working on a tourism overlay district task force, which is making recommendations on where there may be some additional short-term rental licensing allowed in town. So that's a process been going underway, as many of you know, for several months now. We're also taking a look right now at some issues related to congestion in town, kind of as a reaction to all the people that were in town for snow sculptures, and also at President's Day weekend, for example. So anyway, there's lots of special projects like that the planners get involved with. Our building division, we review all building permits for new construction to ensure that they comply with the International Building Code, which we've adopted. We have 2 inspectors that are in the field every day, inspecting sites to ensure that all the construction is done per code. We've got a plans examiner here in the office that's reviewing the actual applications that come in, and a permit tech that assists us with actually issuing the permits. And we try to do that in a timely fashion. And I think we have a pretty good turnaround time compared to a lot of other jurisdictions, as far as I've been able to tell. Our 3rd division, housing and childcare, it's focused on maintaining and improving housing options for our local workforce. And over the years, the program has overseen the development and construction of a number of town projects, including Blue 52, Coteau Flats, Huron Landing, Denison Commons, Pinewood 2, and Valley Brook. Those are all like in the last maybe 10 to 12 years. Those have gone on ground. We recently, just a week or so ago, brought this to town council, a 5-year blueprint for housing in the future. And that's a pretty aggressive thing that we're doing right now. We've increased our staffing in housing to address the various programs that we're working on. And we are actively pursuing in the next 5 years the construction of 600 new units that will either be for sale or rental, along with trying to deed restrict another 370 units. That's our target, which is existing housing inventory. We put a deed restriction on it, which restricts it to local workforce. Whoever occupies it has to be working locally. And we're able to maintain our housing stock or increase it as a result of that. We also have, in terms of future projects that we're working on, in terms of construction, we have Alta Verde 1 and Alta Verde 2 out on the McKean property at the north end of town by where the solar garden is up there. Between those 2, we're going to have over 250 new units coming on board. We also have the Block 11 net zero housing project. I will mention that both Alta Verde 1 and 2 are also net zero projects. So there's enough solar going on those that they will produce as much energy as they consume. And there's no natural gas getting ran to those sites as well. So we're significantly eliminating our carbon footprint on those. Finally, another site we're working collaboratively with the county on is the Justice Center site just up north of the Justice Center complex that the county has there on south end of Airport Road. We've got several housing programs that are focused on these deed restrictions that I talked about a minute ago. One is Housing Helps, where we provide financial incentives to people to voluntarily deed restrict their properties. And then we have a buy down program where we'll look for properties that are listed, buy them, place a deed restriction on them, and then resell them at a discounted rate. In addition, the housing and childcare, we have a childcare program where we provide scholarships to families to assist with the expenses of childcare, which are significant and a real challenge for the local workforce. So obviously both the childcare and the housing programs are really focused on trying to ensure that our workforce can continue to live in this community as opposed to having everyone commuting from outside. We've had our department's incubated a number of programs over the years too. I'm pretty proud to say actually. And so, for example, the Breckenridge Arts District and the Public Art Program, the Breckenridge Heritage Alliance, it's now called Breckenridge History. Those both started in our department, as well as did the Open Space and Trails Program and the Sustainability Program that the town has. They all originated here, and for many years were in community development. We continue to be involved in those efforts on issues. There's a lot of communication between different departments on open space and sustainability. I was just in a meeting this morning about us moving to 100% renewable for the town facilities. And so we continue to be heavily involved in that. And I'll be glad to answer any more questions later. Thank you.
I'd really encourage all of you to go on the Town of Breck website under the house and search through the housing department under community development and look for, I believe they posted the five-year blueprint in the last couple of days. So it's on there, and take a look at it. It talks about how we're going to leverage, $50 million in revenue that we have over the next 5 years into over $300 million in total development for the town. And to me, that's how you get it done. And there isn't a question out there. If you're watching the Summit Daily and reading all these things, that somebody isn't talking about workforce housing. So I will always put Breck up as the leader in what's happening right now for years and today with development of workforce housing. Thank you, Mark. Chief Baird, Police Department.
Okay, yeah. Hello, everybody. Congratulations. You've made it halfway through the presentation by staff. I am right in the middle here. Helen, you able to let me share a couple things?
Yep, let me do that.
So while Helen's doing that, just a quick introduction. Out of the senior staff members for the town of Breckenridge, I am the new guy. I've been here for about 4 years, although this is my 29th year in law enforcement. I've been with the town's police department since 2018. And Helen's given me the thumbs up. 1 second. Okay. So just a couple quick things, and there's a purpose to this. I'm not going to try and inundate you with a bunch of diagrams, but hey, we're halfway through, so maybe this will help keep everybody awake. So the police department is structured somewhat in a paramilitary manner. And the reason I'm showing you this is people don't have a general sense of how many police officers we have. So the town of Breckenridge has 29 members in the police department. Of those, 5 of them are civilian positions, and the remaining 24 are police officers in some capacity, from me to our newest line level officer. By way of talking about challenges, it's this. You can see all these vacancies that we have right now. We're currently at 8 vacancies. We do have some new people coming on and some others that are potentially going to be leaving. That is definitely one of our biggest issues. Dana mentioned during her presentation the challenge of recruitment, and it just kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. We were blessed. We went about 20 months here without losing one person, but it's almost as if they were kind of stacking up at the door. And so our biggest priority right now is trying to fill some of these vacancies. One of the last budget cycle, we added a CSO position. Community service officers are responsible for some of the low-level enforcement duties, but one of the things that the current council has expressed a desire for is for us to be less complaint-driven when it comes both to short-term rentals and other code enforcement issues, and be a little more proactive. So council authorized the addition of one position here, which we've recently been able to fill, and we're still getting that person trained and everything, but we're hopeful that in the relatively near future, we will be able to be a little more proactive with that, the code issues, and trying to get a little bit better compliance from some of our short-term rentals, especially the ones we tend to have repeated issues with. But I also will tell you, so this is our calls for service, and I promise this is the second to last slide. We're almost there. You can see the grand total here on the far right. That's the number of calls for service that the police department handles for each of those years. This particular chart goes 2017 through 2021. And although Dana indicated that from her standpoint, the summer tends to be busiest because she's looking at it through an employment lens, we tend to have busy seasons too, and it's based on how many people we have in town. So you'll notice that we tend to get a little less busy in April and May and early June. And then we'll pick up again in the summer, and then it'll get quiet again in the fall for a couple months before the skier traffic starts. And then we tend to be busy in March. Obviously, that's the spring breakers from the colleges, and those of you that were that age once know that that's not always the time for the best decisions to be made. And so we do end up taking a few extra calls during those few weeks. But the last thing I want to show you is just a real quick, our crime in the town of Breckenridge. This goes back to 2016. So you'll see, if you look at these numbers on the very bottom, this is the total number of crimes that have occurred in each one of those years. The reason I share that is just to contrast that with the slide before that shows the number of calls for service. And just so that you can recognize that, generally speaking, less than 10% of what the police department goes out on call-wise is actually criminal related. So we try and be community oriented in the town of Breckenridge. Quick example, yesterday somebody left their short-term rental, realized they left a pair of skis outside the door. And so one of our CSOs went out there and snatched onto them, brought them to the police department just to make sure that they were safe while they were driving back into town. So that is the police department kind of in a nutshell, and I'm happy to take questions at the end as well.
Hey, Jim, I think a lot of people don't understand how long it takes from the time you hire an officer until that officer can actually, cover a shift and be of service to you out there. It obviously depends on if you have to send them to a police academy, but why don't you just tell them what that timeline is?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. That's a really good point. And that really does articulate one of the huge challenges we have with staffing the police department, particularly the sworn positions. So just like any job, somebody generally speaking will have to give us 2 weeks notice to leave. And that's if they want to still be considered hireable in the future. But generally speaking, we get about 2 weeks notice. If we bring on new police officers in 2 ways. We bring them on laterally, meaning that we steal them from another agency. Bringing on somebody like that, the onboarding process alone, generally speaking, is going to be 3 to 4 months. Once they're in the door, we're going to have to train them. We don't need to train them how to be a police officer, but we need to train them how to do it here, which is another couple of months that they'll have to focus on that. But the other way that we hire people is we sponsor them, and we actually send them to the academy. We make them an employee, and then the first 3 or 4 months of their time here as an employee, they're spending in the police academy. When we hire somebody like that, we have to now add on another 4 months for the academy. And those people also take a little longer to train once we get them in the door. So generally speaking, from the time somebody fills out an application to go to the academy to the time where they're a fully independent police officer on the road, it's about a year. And that can be a huge challenge, especially if there's other people that are kind of trickling out the door during that time frame. So,
yep.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Chief. Scott.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Reed. I am the Director of Recreation for the town of Breckenridge. The Recreation Department has a number of divisions that I'll kind of run through based on facility, and then programs is a bigger one as well. So facilities-wise, you are probably familiar with most of our facilities, or hopefully all of them. The Recreation Center certainly is the largest one and has the most visitation, and it includes both Kingdom Park, so the numbers of fields that are surrounding the Recreation Center, as well. The Stephen C. West Ice Arena on the south end of town. The Breckenridge Tennis Center is a separate facility that's also in Kingdom Park, but is operated separately operationally. We have 2 Nordic centers, one of which the town operates entirely. That was the Gold Run Nordic Center, which is out on the golf course. And then the Breckenridge Nordic Center is operated under license with the Dayton family, but is also owned by the town of Breckenridge. The golf course itself is operated within the recreation department. That includes both golf operations and the pro shop and tee times and the like, and also the golf course maintenance, which is the greenskeeping and the like as well. And then finally, the open space and trails division is a specific division that handles a lot of the acquisitions, has over 5,000 acres of land, as well as over 64 miles of trail that they maintain and manage over time. And then I would kind of drill down a little bit into the programs division, which does a number of things that are perhaps unseen, but maybe have become more present in the last couple of years. Our programs division really handles a lot of the youth programs that we have. And so we are one of the few operators in the county of after school programs, so that when the school gets out, today, for example, is a Wednesday, and is, kids are out school at 2 o'clock. What do the parents do from then until 6 p.m.? Well, they come to the rec center and have a number of programs going until 6, so people can stay at their positions and their work till 6 o'clock. So that includes a number of different things within that. We also do a number of summer camps. That's a really busy season for us. Like Dana and Rick mentioned, we do a lot of hiring in the summertime for seasonal employees, but we do a number of summertime camps that really provide opportunities for childcare, essentially a full day, but also adventure-based programming and Breck Mountain Camp and that stuff during the summer. We also do what we call mini camps, which is whenever the school district is closed, we are offering childcare so that people can continue to maintain their jobs, and they have state licensed childcare through our facility, which is a big difference from some of the other camps that you see around. Other things under programs include group fitness classes. We do leagues, including lacrosse and hockey, basketball and volleyball. We manage a number of events and races that you all are aware of, including the Summit Trail Running Series, the Summit Mountain Challenge, and the Firecracker 50 is new this year for us. Within the aquatics division, so the pool area, we have swim lessons, which we've prioritized so that people know how to swim. It's a safety element for our community as well, so people can, those are very popular, as trying to get your kid to learn how to swim so that they're safe long term. And then we also do personal training, which is, to help people recover from injuries and the like. We do have Avalanche Physical Therapy as physical fitness work, as well as we do kind of afterwards personal training as well. So physical therapy as well as personal training. Hot topics for us, I'll kind of break it down by division. Administration. On our side of things, currently we have about 176 employees. That includes full-time and part-time. And then again, it ramps up during the summertime to a significant higher number there. But administration, and from our side of things, we're doing a website optimization right now to make sure that our interface with the customer is really strong. And then once again, staff retention and recruitment is a really big part of what we do, given the number of staffing elements that we have. From an operations standpoint, this year we are working on ball field lights for the two softball and baseball fields that we have are both getting ball field lights that have been postponed for a couple of years, and we're finally getting those up so that we can continue to have softball leagues in the summertime and the like. We are doing replacing the 2 upper tennis courts at Carter Park. So there are 4 sets of courts at Carter Park, and we're replacing the upper 2 and then resurfacing and restriping the lower 2. So that'll be a significant project here in the next month or 2. We are taking possession of a electric driven ice resurfacer. So we have 2 ice resurfacers at the Stephen C. West Ice Arena. One of them is at the end of its lifespan, and so we are going to replace that with a fully electric one coming in July. And then we also are already planning for our annual shutdown in both of our main facilities, being the rec center and the ice rink. We shut those down for up to a week in the case of the rec center, sort of at an off time, September, early October, to do substantial cleaning and repair once a year. So that's what we're working on right now in operations. In programs, as I mentioned, after school and mini camps are being planned. We are planning our whole summer operation, which is, we continue to see really major growth in our adventure programs, which includes climbing and mountain biking and hiking and skateboarding. Those are the ones that really are expanding very quickly. And as I mentioned earlier, we are running the Firecracker 50 as well as the Summit Mountain Challenge, which is the local mountain bike series this year, in addition to the Summit Trail Running Series. And so it'll be a busy local race season in that regard. At the golf course, we experienced exceptional demand in the last couple of years for tee times. So we were trying to optimize the access for tee times, especially for local punch pass holders, which seemed to take the brunt of that demand in terms of lacking tee times last year. So we're working on that, as well as an irrigation replacement project. So we have 27 holes. That's 3 different nines. 2 of the 9s have already had irrigation replacement in recent years, and then there's the 3rd one is now being replaced at a cost of about $2 million. We'd mentioned that the golf course is an enterprise fund, and so it is fully all the money that is both the revenue and expenses for that are all within its own enterprise fund. It is not off the general fund. So that kind of cost comes from tee times and the reservations that we have, and the revenues that are generated are then put back into the facility itself. And then even more immediately, we're looking to potentially start clearing greens. For those of you who golf, we will be looking at clearing greens probably starting next week for a variety of reasons. We get those cleaned off early and then try to treat those as the snow starts melting around them. Nordic Elements, we are finishing the seasons there. We also do operate a concessionaire has a sleigh ride operation out there that generates some decent income to help offset some of the costs of the Nordic program. So those will be wrapping up here by the beginning of April, so not too far off. And then it's at the ice rink, the Summit Youth Hockey is our biggest customer, if you will. And they just wrapped up operations this week. So they've had their full season and they are wrapping up. We do have continued adult hockey leagues, as well as the Vipers have 3 more games coming up here shortly, and those will start winding down. Ice is generally, what happens in the summertime is that the indoor ice sheet remains and is fairly popular, especially for free skates and kind of open ice public skates. But we also turn the outdoor ice rink, it's an outdoor sheet, we turn that into a turf oval during the summertime. So that turf, it becomes a turf field in the summertime for a number of programming elements, including soccer. And then lastly, open space and trails. Big projects there are that we're working on the master plan revision. So that's one that's maybe 3/4 of the way through the process. And we have an open house on Thursday, tomorrow night, or sorry, 2 nights from now, that will be wrapped up here in about a month or 2. And then as far as the master plan is concerned, we're planning for summer trails and volunteer projects and what we're doing for additional maintenance, but also additional trails for this year. We had a BOSAC meeting last night that went through a number of what our summer projects are going to look like coming from there. And then also I mentioned BOSAC. So BOSAC is one of the citizen commissions that is operated on a monthly basis in terms of meetings. There are BOSAC appointments that are coming here shortly. So that's another element that we're working on in the near term. So I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have regarding Recreation Department.
Thank you, Scott. James.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Phelps. I'm the Public Works Director. I've had the good fortune of being employed here at the town of Breckenridge for over 25 years now. So definitely I've seen some changes within the department and also the town, of course. The Public Works Department consists of 7 different divisions. A lot of these divisions are some of the customer services that this community really appreciates and expects and relies on. The Public Works Department is made up of about 93 full-time staff at full staff, and has about 25 seasonal staff within the department. The 7 different divisions are administration, engineering, facilities, fleet, mobility, streets and parks, and water. Just going briefly through those different divisions, the admin division really provides those support services for the internal divisions, both on whether accounts payable, accounts receivable, and some of the HR matters that we do with the number of staff that we have. The engineering division does a lot of development review for both residential and commercial projects, as well as runs mini projects. Facilities is an primarily focuses on internal services for the buildings that we own and maintain. A lot of those my peers have already mentioned, whether they're the ice rink, golf course, Arts District, Riverwalk Center, Town Hall, here Public Works. The list really goes on. Fleet division, we maintain all the town vehicles, the free ride buses. We're also actively pursuing electric buses, as many of you have seen around town. We have a number of those in queue right now to receive more here over the next year. The mobility division, which is a newly formed, it was just a reshape of a couple divisions from other departments even, but it's really the transit division, which was now under mobility, and parking division and sustainability. And I'll let, here in a minute, I'll let Matt Halsey give a little bit of an intro to the mobility division. The other area that many of you are familiar with, just again from being around town, streets and parks. This is your plowing services, your sidewalks, your road maintenance, your street sweeping. We support probably every summer event and winter event within this division. So whether it's Oktoberfest or whether it's 4th of July or Mardi Gras or Ula Parade, you'll see the Streets and Parks Division providing support for those different events. The Water Division is the last division. And like Scott mentioned earlier with the Golf Fund, the Water Division is actually an enterprise fund as well. So all the expenses are internal to the revenues. So all the water users, just like any utility, whether it's Excel or your phone bill, that utility then in turn pays for those expenses. One of the things that we have going on right now is a major project in the water division is we have a request for a proposal out right now looking at our water rate structure. And this is really going to incorporate not only what our water rate fees are, but our maintenance fee and our connection fee, what those numbers, if they're in line with industry standards. And the connection fee, you often hear the term PIFs, which are synonymous with plan investment fees. So that's how that works. But one of the reasons for doing the study right now is that we have approximately $50 million worth of capital projects on the next 8 to 10 year horizon line. And so we want to be sure that the fund is adequately funded for both the operational and capital improvements of that. And in addition to that, we're, as part of our sustainability goals, right now, we are really looking to promote water conservation. And so we want to be sure that we're creating a system that has promotion of water conservation in addition to capturing the right revenues for to keep the fund solvent. With that, the other project that I wanted to mention that we're running here in Public Works is the Fiber 9600, which is the fiber infrastructure for the putting in the backbone for fiber around the town. And one of the things that I just wanted to mention as well, in addition to all the operational things that we do in Public Works, obviously we run a lot of projects, but if you follow the federal politics and some of the grants that are out there available right now, whether they're through DOLA or ARPA or the CARES or hopefully soon to be passed BBB, there's a lot of grant opportunities that will funnel right into Public Works, whether they're in transportation, mobility, sustainability, water, streets, parks. So we have a number of folks within this department that are all tuned in to all those different granting opportunities. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions at the end of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Matt Halsey, who is our Assistant Director of Mobility within the Public Works Department.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Halsey. I am the Assistant Mobility Director for the town of Breckenridge. As our town has become more complex, the Mobility Division was created to guide us into a sustainable future. As James mentioned, we're based out of the Public Works campus out here on Airport Road. The Mobility Division has 3 departments: sustainability, parking, and transit, which you all know is the free ride. Our current focus for transit is to continuously seek improvements to promote ridership, efficiency, and reliability to get people out of cars and utilizing transit. We're also focused on the challenge of hiring and retaining talent in a competitive market for commercially licensed drivers. In regards to parking, we use pay parking to manage behavior and create vacancy and turnover of parking stalls so guests and locals have parking available when they need it. We are also working through the dynamics of the beautiful new parking structure, in which phase 2 will be completed this fall. Sustainability-wise, we are working to create an updated sustainable Breckenridge plan. The last one is over 10 years old, and while it is a fantastic tool, it's ready for an update, especially as we're hosting Mountain Towns 2030 this September. As Mark mentioned earlier, we continue to focus on offsetting energy use as well as working through REMP, or the Renewable Energy Mitigation Program, with a series of planned focus groups to get more public feedback. We're also focused on grants that help us install more electric vehicle charging infrastructure throughout town, as well as grants to continue the transition of our transit fleet to be more green. That's all I have, and I'll also be available for questions.
Thank you, Matt. Shannon Smith, our town engineer, is going to talk about some of the big capital projects that are in store. And if nothing else, this will be educational and tell you where you should avoid this summer, because it's going to be a busy summer.
Hi, everybody. I think I am your last staff member to speak, so hang in there. As Rick said, my name's Shannon Smith. I'm the town engineer. I'm in my 14th full-time year with the town. The engineering division, as James mentioned, is part of Public Works. We have a staff of 3 engineers, a summer construction inspector, and a GIS analyst. Alongside enforcement of the engineering standards for new development, the division manages the capital improvements plan, which we refer to as the CIP. The CIP consists of the capital construction projects, and you can find it in the annual budget book. The CIP includes a 5-year plan. That's the document we often look at, but only current year projects are officially adopted and funded each year. The planning process for CIP projects typically begins in June for the following year. Projects can be proposed by staff, or they're often council directed, and they can range from infrastructure replacement to new vertical construction like the parking structure. As Rick mentioned, we're having a busy year this spring. I think the top 3 projects that are gonna have a big public impact traffic-wise are going to be the Watson Roundabout. That one's coming in support of the parking structure project. So it's Watson Ave and Park Ave. So that construction will begin in April and go through October. We also are doing a large repaving program, which includes some repaving of Main Street, Wellington Road, a small section of Ridge Street, French Street, and then some neighborhood roads as well. And then we're also doing a rebuild of the Blue River north of Coin Valley Road. That includes the river rehabilitation as well as replacement of the culverts that pass the river under Coin Valley Road. So Coin Valley Road will be closed between Dennis and Placer Road. That's the access that you get in to go to that brewery and Brett Crane. From there all the way to the highway, that section of road will be closed. So residents will have to travel down Airport Road to Valley Brook or Park Ave to access the highway. We have a bunch of other small projects, but I think the hot topic ones will be the roundabout, the paving, and the Coin Valley Road work.
Yeah, and Coin Valley is closed for the entire summer. It will, yeah. And, we don't really have a choice. We had rebuilt the river. We had a failure of the river. We've been working with the Army Corps of Engineers. We put this off the last couple of years because of COVID and uncertainty and different things like that. And we can't put it off any longer. Army Corps wants it fixed. We need to get it fixed. It was, some of you may remember, it wasn't that many years ago, what we have now is an interim fix. That whole road washed away.
Yeah, 2011, July 11
Yeah,
it
you
walked.
can, yeah. So it's not gonna have culverts anymore. It's gonna be an open bridge with the river passing through. And as part of, since we're doing it for some additional dollars, we're actually rerouting and moving the bike path to go under Coin Valley next to the river, because it's a dangerous crossing there. And so it's time to get that done too. And that'll all happen. And we will have the bike path open all summer. We'll kind of take it along the old corridor a little closer to Highway 9 and have it go up that way to get away from the construction. But it will continue all through the summer because we know how popular that is. But the parking structure has not worked the way it was designed to work because it's not complete. There's a right in, right out coming off of Park Avenue directly into that new South Gondola parking structure area that CDOT would not let us build that right in, right out until the roundabout at Watson was in place. So, that's why it's taking longer to empty that facility at the end of the day. And while we'll have a police officer out there on peak days just directing traffic to try to get people out because it's just a mess right now. So it's going to be painful, but it'll be worth it in the long run, getting that all done. So thanks, Shannon. All right, that's what we had on the agenda. Again, we're just scratched the surface. A lot of things going on. Breck is not a big community, but I've always said it's a very dynamic community. We have a lot of very active things that we're doing. All these things that you heard everybody describe and talk about are the day-to-day operations that occur every day. And that really, all the other stuff that pops up, whether we're dealing with short-term rentals or we're dealing with other issues and council directions, those are all in addition to the day-to-day stuff that has to happen just to make the town what it is and to allow us to offer the services that we offer to not only our guests, but our locals. So questions. Now is the time for you to ask any questions you have about something we haven't talked about, or you need clarity on anything we talked about. I think if you just kind of let me know you have something to say, we'll call on you. And Todd, I see you, so go ahead.
Thanks, Rick, and thanks everybody for that summary. That was awesome. Really appreciate the thoroughness and all the details there. Certainly a lot going on. Dana, I'm curious, you'd mentioned 190 to 200 full-time employees. How many vacancies are there, would you say, ballpark, of full-time, part-time, and say seasonal for the winter? Just trying to get a snapshot of how short-staffed we are.
So we do have a number of vacancies. Right now, our full-time vacancies, I don't have that percentage offhand, but we do have a number of vacancies. And I would maybe ballpark 10%, but I hate to say for sure what our vacancy rate is without running a report.
I think if you just look at full-time, it's gonna land somewhere between 10 to 20%, Todd. I mean, 8 of them alone are in the PD right now. So, I mean, and we know, I think we're always seem to be trying to hire a couple of full-time transit positions. Some of those may be seasonal positions, but that's a real challenge for us. And some of our, anything that requires a CDL license has become more challenging over the years, whether it's a heavy equipment operator, they're driving the large trucks, or the heavy equipment requires CDL, and all of our transit drivers require CDL. And there's probably many reasons why CDLs are a challenge, but one of those has to do with legalization of marijuana. And it's a legal substance that can be used, but the feds don't recognize it. And the feds, if you use it, even on your days off, it's in your system. It's in your system for any random testing that has to occur if you're a CDL license, and you will lose your job. So you pretty much have to be willing to be a non-user if you want to have a CDL license in the world today. So, and not everybody's there. So that's what I think.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Is the part-time and seasonal employment, are those vacancies a little bit higher, would you say? Just curious.
So when we're about ready to go into our summer seasonal hiring, so we're really trying to plan now for a strategy to get those filled. So we can offer enough day camp spots. We can, the golf course looks as pretty as it did last year, in transit as well. So we have seasonal transit as well. I would say at the rec center, individuals tend to really like working at the rec center and the ice rink. And so we have good luck filling those part-time positions. So when we go into summer, we have to have a plan now to be competitive.
Hi, this is Allie. I apologize. I'm got the bright light behind me here. Has the town done any studies to see what is considered a living wage in Summit County, so that when they are doing hiring, instead of making offers of $15 an hour or $17 an hour, that they're actually, investigating what is a livable wage here in Summit County, so that someone can rent a place without having to have a subsidized housing. So
we do every 3 years or so, we will do a formal pay study, which we actually hire a third-party contractor to come in and make sure that all of our positions are competitive based on classification, et cetera, with like positions and we typically will look at anywhere from 10 to 12 like communities, and some even Front Range communities, because we know our proximity to the Front Range, they're a competitor of ours. So we do that about every 3 years, every day. And we'll look at different things. I'm not aware of anybody that has done what's a livable wage study. Dana, are you?
I have seen the last report that I have seen has been a couple years, but there used to be a report that came out countywide about livable wage, and of course that data now is not valid. But it's Colorado, it's across Colorado, and then they separate it out by region. So it's not done locally, but it is done, and we get our region's information. But I've not received that data recently.
Tom.
Unmute. Okay, how you doing, Rick?
Good.
Good. Thanks a bunch for this. This is really, really super informational. Thanks all you guys. I know most of you people, so thanks for coming on. My question is, with the housing that's being built up by the BBC, how much of that is rental housing, or is that all market housing or housing to be sold?
100%. 100% rental. It will
Excellent.
Be. Yeah, I think it's around, like we said, a total of 270. It's between 250, 270 total units out there. It all will have income. Rent. We don't, not formal, but some of it is LIHTC, so it has some restrictions on income caps, but the majority of it in perpetuity. We signed a deal that will always be workforce housing, rental. Excellent. Workforce housing in perpetuity.
And that's for the town and for the ski area and all that stuff?
Every employee.
Excellent. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I have a question about the Lease to Locals program that was piloted, and I believe the town is going to be keeping. Is there a reason why they haven't implemented rent caps in that program? I know that I saw a listing over the past winter for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment here in Breckenridge, and it was still listed for $3,500 a month, which in my mind is not affordable for a local worker. And so how does the town plan to address that? Because you guys are we're giving subsidies that are paid for by the taxpayers to these homeowners, and then they're still charging what I consider to be an unaffordable rate for a local worker.
Well, I don't disagree with you, and some of it's, and we had a discussion about that. The bottom line is that Lease to Locals is a short-term, it's a short-term program to fill an immediate need while we can get some of these units built. And the only way we feel that we are able to attract these people is by not having too many restrictions on it. So the fact that we may give somebody, that enters into a Lease to Locals, with a 2-bedroom apartment for a 12-month period, and some of those receive $15,000 to $18,000 subsidy, plus they were still doing a $3,000 a month rental, was a little difficult for me to sign some of those things. But those people wouldn't have been there if we had too many restrictions. And so now the feeling is that it's just because we need those units right now. We're number one, our subsidy is going to not be as high in year 2. And we feel if we put too many restrictions on it, those units just won't be available. So that's the discussion that's going on. Right or wrong. I mean, I share some of your concerns, but so.
Yeah, it's concerning to see, like, in my mind, I think the town of Breckenridge and Summit County should be placing some kind of cap, maybe $1,400, $1,500 per bedroom. But when you look at it and go, wow, this person is still, they're getting a $2,000 or $2,200 a month subsidy plus $1,750 per bedroom, it's just not reasonable. And I don't know how many people we expect to stack in these apartments, but I don't think having 4 workers in a 2-bedroom apartment is really ideal conditions for them.
No, and one of the things we look at is that we say right now this is, it's costing the town $200,000 to $250,000 for a year of this, but we gained, don't quote me, but it's 20 to 25 bedrooms doing it, and it cost us that much, if not more, to just go build 1 bedroom right now.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, and to follow up, because the town is obviously investing a lot of money in this, and I agree it should be a priority. But what is the town asking of Vail Resorts? How are they stepping to the table and really being responsible? Because Vail Resorts is a major employer in our community, and they're notorious for paying their workers $15 an hour and, quite frankly, not treating them very well. So how are we going to make Vail Resorts more accountable for either paying their employees a fair wage or contributing to the housing?
Well, the key word is, how do we make them? Well, there's only so many things we can do. Vail Resorts, if you were to look at it in proportion, Vail Resorts has probably built more housing proportionally, even with the number of employees they have, than any other developer or employer in the town. So they have built quite a bit of housing. They don't have any more land in town. And yet, the latest housing that they built was the Wintergreen project over in Keystone. Can they do more? Yeah. Would we love to see them do more? Yes. We had a conversation. The mayor and I had a conversation with our local COO and her immediate boss, Bill Rock, on Monday. And we said, we need you to help more with housing and look at these projects and see what you can do, that you're not just coming in and trying to master lease, but actually help purchase units, buy units. And they said, we will look at these project by project and see what opportunities are there for us. So that's where we are right now. And that topic of conversation comes up quite a bit, and it's not always just Vail Resorts, but other large developers in town too. And those people are coming to the table and building stuff, other large developers. So
Question for
Mike?
Jim.
I'm sorry.
Chief, for Jim on police department, just a question. And I was wondering, so we're, talking about the cost and how long it takes to bring on sworn officers. What's the cost comparison between training and bringing on a CSO versus a sworn officer? And if a lot of the calls that come in, aren't criminal, could we bring on more CSOs for, a lot of the stuff that the officers are dealing with and take some pressure off of them?
To answer your first question, a CSO does not have to go to a police academy, state academy. We do put them through a training program here at the PD, one kind of in the building, more classroom related. And then they actually, when they're on the road, they end up going through a training program that's a little more abbreviated than a police officer, but it's the same format where they incrementally pick up more and more of the responsibility. Although I mentioned that such a small amount of the police department's calls for service are criminal, it's important to note a couple things. One is that the CSOs are responding to some of those calls already. So they do handle some of those. That's the total calls for service for the department. But also, even the ones that aren't necessarily criminal are often kind of the overlay of the call is based on some kind of conflict between a couple people. And so generally speaking, we actually want our police officers to be a part of that. If there's any potential for something to escalate, and then the CSOs would handle situations where that's not really a concern. With the CSOs, they've proven to be just about as challenging to hire. Although the onboarding process is a little quicker, we've struggled to fill those positions as well. And as the focus of the community service unit kind of shifts from a reactive to a proactive approach to things, I think more of their time will be taken up doing those things as well.
And that statistic of, around 10 to 15% of most calls for service being actual criminal things are fairly consistent across the board. That's not just a Breckenridge statistic. You'll see that on a national level. And certainly there's parts of areas that will spike and increase in that. The other thing is we will not have less than 2 police officers working at any time out there, and we prefer that to be more during peak periods. So because you could have one domestic violence call and you will always have both 2 police officers respond to those types of calls, and then all of a sudden everybody's tied up and nobody's available. So you always have to think about availability for emergencies and how that's handled. And those are those are the types of things that that's what policing exists for. So, when you need a cop and you need them quickly, you don't want to be worried about what, no one's available and that kind of stuff. And we share resources all the time. The sheriff backs us up, we back the sheriff up constantly. So, yeah. Anybody else have any other questions?
I think Jay Beckerman has his hand raised, and I also have another question too.
Where the heck's Jay Beckerman? Oh,
hey, Rick.
Hi.
Rick, can you hear me?
Okay, now, yeah.
Sorry about that. Hey, you sit on the task force for the STR overlay district. I'm curious. Zone 1 and Zone 3 are very clear. What is Zone 2 shaping up to look like through your meetings? And I know basically where it's going to lay, but how is that thing? How's that shaping up for policy wise?
Well, I don't want to comment on policy because I think that's 100% in the council's camp on what policy is, meaning what percentage of, or how many licenses will they have. Zone 2 is by far the smallest zone with only, Mark, you may jump in, it only has a small amount of units. it's part of the historic district, and it's part of Warriors Mark. I think it's Upper Warriors Mark is in zone 2. And so it's not a very big unit, and it doesn't have a whole lot of housing in it right now. So
Yeah, Jay, and the only thing I'd add is zone 2 was kind of created to provide this intermediate area where you wouldn't have to reduce as much licensing as the goal is in zone 3, which is kind of the island stuff east of town. It's a recognition that there's a little higher rate of short-term renting in those neighborhoods, but like Rick said, it's a relatively small area.
Thanks. Alec.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I just had another question, and this one is to Chief Baird, and this has to do with, you mentioned 10% of your calls being criminal related. What percentage of calls in our community are related to mental health type situations? And how is the police force prepared to answer those types of calls?
I don't have any statistics regarding how what percentage of calls kind of have that as a centric component. But it's obviously something that we are disproportionately involved in. The police are often the first response and the ultimate solution. We're the first response to many calls and the ultimate solution to very few of them. But in Summit County, we have an advantage that the sheriff's office provides a team. It's called the SMART team, and they're a co-responder group that responds with a police officer as well as a clinician to calls that have an acute mental health crisis as a central component of it. And so the sheriff's office will respond. They've been very receptive. They've been very responsive. And when we do run across those situations, we have the ability, we'll usually go and initially stabilize the scene while they're en route. And then when they arrive, we just kind of do a warm handoff, and then they will work with the person, with the clinician. They'll have a police officer on scene, but the clinician's really doing most of the heavy lifting as far as coming up with a plan for the person, with the idea that a lot of these people can be kind of stabilized at home, as opposed to transporting everybody to the hospital, overwhelming another short-staffed facility with people that aren't necessarily in their bailiwick to handle any more effectively.
Thank you, Chief Baird. Do you think that the community has seen an increase in these types of calls over the past several years?
Well, I can't speak to several years, but we certainly have seen some of the results of the pandemic have been an increase in mental health calls for service. Absolutely. I think that's universal across the country. And as we, in the police department, as we kind of have navigated that, there's people that were already kind of suffering from some kind of mental health concern. And then you add the stress of the pandemic and the out of work and a lot of conflict that seems to occur over things specific to the pandemic. And yeah, we've definitely seen an increase.
Well, one of the reasons we've been successful, and I say we, countywide, because we've all agreed that this is a countywide problem, and the SMART team approach, which we support, is a countywide approach to that, is because we have a high incidence. This is the worst statistic we ever want, right? The suicide rate in Summit County is high. And we've had tragic incidents that have occurred here recently. And when we look at our suicide rate per capita, it is way above where it should be. And, we've taken Shannon, the deputy town manager, is on the board of directors for Building Hope. Building Hope is one organization that we fund. We put a lot of funding. The town really supports that organization because this has been a high priority for this community and this council for at least the last 4 to 5 years. of how that we have better resources and do a better job of responding to mental health in the county.
Real quick, just to add to that also, one of the things that Building Hope has been very proactive with is trying to be a better resource for those of us that are going out there and dealing with these calls for service. So they've been very engaged with all of the first responders, trying to come up with programming, support services to help help the helpers.
All right, and then I have another question that goes back to housing, because I know that the town council recently approved the camping in town or camping in vehicles in town with a permit that would be at the Justice Center. How does the town envision this program working? Do we see this as a stopgap or a temporary solution while housing is being built? Or do we envision this being something long-term where we're gonna have people living in vehicles in Summit County?
I'll start off with this one, if that's okay, Rick.
Yeah. Talk about process, Jim.
Yeah, so this program actually started previously. It's been going on for a couple of years at the Agape Church in the parking lot there.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that portion of the program.
Okay, and just for those of you that might not be, it's been ongoing for a couple of years, and it's designed to be a location, kind of a safe location for people who are working in Summit County to live in their cars, to basically sleep in their cars. There's an application process you have to go through. You have to agree to certain rules. And what we found through a lot of these meetings is that a lot of the people that take part in that program, they don't want housing beyond that. They've been very, especially the founder, when she kind of got it up and running, she was talking about not everybody wants to live in an apartment and spend their money in that way. So it was really filling a niche. But what they found was that the capacity of the program was starting to exceed the resources that were available. So they started to look at different places where they could branch out. And so they're kind of looking at each of the communities, each of the towns to try and offer something up. The town of Breckenridge was one of the first ones to agree to that. But we don't know if I don't necessarily see it as something that's going to go away. But they're looking to actually expand the program. And the location that we have here in town, I think is supposed to be active in about a month with a limited number. And then, yeah, I guess that's it. Rick, if you have anything else.
No, it's just, this is a trial basis. We limited it up to 10 permits. Again, personally, I hope it's a short-term solution, but who knows?
Yeah, and Rick, what kind of resources is the town putting in to have, like bathroom and shower facilities and things for people who are living in their vehicle in a parking lot?
I believe we're sharing in the cost of a porta potty out there, but there's no portable shower facilities that are going up out there. And so, yeah, they seem to have that figured out.
Okay.
Got a question for Dana. And so when we were talking about compensation, does each department set its compensation plans for each individual position, and is that tied into and set to the yearly budget? In other words, is there any flexibility to adjust that within a yearly budget cycle?
Yeah, great question. So the way compensation works is we have an approved pay plan every year. So it has every position, and every position in our organization is grouped together with like positions, and those positions have a pay range. So a minimum, a mid, and a max. And we have input from not only our departments, but we have input from all across Colorado in comp surveys. And all throughout the year, we participate in comp surveys, either that are position specific. So if we're having trouble recruiting for a certain position, we'll go out to like municipalities and make sure our pay is still competitive. And we have a good system to do that across Colorado. So it is in collaboration with our leaders. It is in collaboration with other municipalities. And then to answer your last question, we do have flexibility to adjust. And I would say we've been doing that more than I've ever seen in my career. That if we find we're behind because we're getting outpaced by the market, we do get some approval to adjust and look at different solutions. And a lot of times it doesn't mean we'll go over budget, because if we've had a vacancy for a little while, we can cover the cost in with our vacancies. But it does then from that point forward change perhaps what we pay that certain position.
Because you budget for full employment, right? Or do you?
Our compensation structure is for full-time positions. And then, so for example, Scott in the rec department, he knows how many hours of personal trainers he needs. He knows how many hours of lifeguards. And so he'll budget accordingly off of the pay ranges that we've established. So he'll budget the hours based on off of our pay ranges. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. Good question.
Quick question. How do I get access to the overlay maps? Do we have that?
Mark.
Yeah, we can provide access to you for that, Tom. I was just checking, and I'm not sure that it's on the website right now.
Yeah,
So
I didn't think it was yet. So
there's an older one. So, but that's something we definitely do.
is that something you want to send to me, or I'd love to have it? That'd be great.
Yeah, and in fact, what I'll do is I'll try to provide a link to all the candidates here.
Excellent. Excellent. Sounds good.
You're welcome.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions or comments or anything?
It was great. I really enjoyed it.
All right.
Yeah, thank everybody for their time. I know you're busy, so to carve time out of your schedules to do this is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. No additional questions here. Appreciate the time.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time and effort too, and good luck to you. And, if you have any additional questions come up, feel free to reach out to Helen or myself, and we'll try to get you the answer.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
You bet.
Thank you.